This is woodblock printmaker David Ball speaking to you from my carving bench, temporarily located in one corner of our new shop in Asakusa. It's evening now, and with the front door locked and nobody else coming up the stairs to bother me, I can get started on the evening's work. This may be my carving bench, but as you can see, it's not a woodblock that I'm working on tonight. It's a tablet and my laptop. My carving tools are tucked away in their box, and I have a plastic pen instead. This isn't exactly what they used in the old days to make prints, of course, but it's going to play a very important role in my next job, which is, as you have probably guessed, the carving of a set of blocks for our new edition of Hokusai's Great Wave image. This is going to be a reproduction, of course, and that means I need a master copy to work from. A poor printmaker like myself can't possibly afford to get his hands on an original, but in truth, just what constitutes an original of this design is pretty much up in the air. This image has been recut and republished and reprinted literally dozens of times over the years, even beginning back in the Edo and Meiji periods, when there was of course no such concept as copyright. Prints in museums now that are well over 100 years old are just as likely to be reproductions, or at best late copies from the early block sets. Scholars and academics argue till the cows come home over any given copy. How early is this one? Is this an original? Me, I don't know. And I don't care. Now, before you panic and start to wonder just what kind of print I'll be making here, let me explain how I'm going to approach this. Any number of museums and collections now have images of this print available online, and I myself have collected a number of copies of the print. I'm going to study these, and I'm going to use as my guide the prints, plural that is, that when you drill down, show the most artistry in their production. Let me show you what I mean with images of a copy in the Smithsonian Museum and of a print currently available here in Tokyo. To start with, I'm going to focus on this area, just under the crest of the wave. There shouldn't really be much difference in these prints, should there? After all, they were made by the same kind of carvers and the same kind of printers, trained in the same traditions, working with the same goal in mind. Here's the old museum copy. There's a little bit of misregistration, as some of the wave outlines don't quite match up with the color areas, but other than that, it shows a very good palette. The different shades of blue work together quite well. And look at the lines. Each and every line shows the original character of the brushstrokes. The overall appearance is very pleasing, and it's wonderfully done. And this is the modern one. I'm not sure what to say other than, my God, they actually sell this. It isn't just misregistered. Those color areas don't even remotely match the bounding lines. And the choice of pigments and tints. You don't have to be a connoisseur of Japanese art to see that something is very wrong here. It's well done printing in the sense that the printer has put the colors down smoothly, but there's just no taste at work here. These people either don't know or don't care what constitutes real Japanese printmaking. Anyway, enough of that. Anybody can look good when compared with stuff like that. My point in showing you that one was simply to illustrate my approach. For the first stage of production, I need a clear set of line work, the main outlines of the design elements. And I'm going to trace those from that Smithsonian copy. The misregistration you saw there is of no consequence. It's the lines themselves that I'm interested in. They show taste and style. That carver knew what he was doing. So that's where this tablet and computer come in. I have brought the image into Photoshop, and I'm tracing each and every line of the print onto a fresh layer in order to separate them from the colors that they were printed with. Once I have the outlines isolated and thus clearly visible, I will then be able to transfer them to the woodblock and get carving. Here's how I'm going to do it. This is a view of my Photoshop screen. I know it's very enlarged, and you can see in places where I've now begun to trace on a separate layer with my pen. I'm tracing it red so that we can see clearly what I'm doing. Each and every line, I'm trying to go over it, catch the thin parts, the thick parts, and try and get as much as I can the original flavor of those lines. Now, it's sometimes a bit difficult actually to see what I'm doing, even though it's partly transparent. So underneath the red layer, I've put another layer in of blank white. So now and then, as I go over each line, what I do, I then click the white layer up, and that allows me to see the shape of the lines I've drawn. I can then, as I'm doing here, I can then pat it out a bit, switch to an eraser, scrape it off a bit. I can end up with a line that looks really nice and juicy and ready for carving. I can put the original back there, and of course I can click off the red layer again anytime I want to see the actual original lines. And I go over the whole entire print this way. It's going to take me quite a few days. So there we are, I know, pen to paper, as it were, and production of our print is now underway. The next video in this set will show how I get the image from this machine over onto an actual woodblock, and then of course we'll begin carving. Before I close this episode off though, I think it might be interesting if I put my jacket on and we take a short walk together. Let's go outside. Here we are outside the shop. It's a fairly quiet Sunday evening. It's about 7 o'clock and it's about time for me to think about dinner. But before I decide where to go, let's take a little walk around the neighborhood here and see some of the sights. We'll start by going around the corner to the famous Hoppidori. This one is really quiet tonight. The last few days, it's been the New Year's season here. It's been just buzzing, and it's settled down now this Sunday night. I don't think I'll be choosing one of these for my own dinner tonight. They're a little bit touristy. Let's head a bit more closer towards Sensoji Temple. There's one of the gable ends of Sensoji Temple behind me, and boy, you should have seen this place the last few days, the New Year's season. People praying at the temple and then pouring out through these gates coming down here. We could not have stood here like this and done this. Let's go a bit closer. I'm going to stay behind the camera here for the next bit because you don't need to see my face, and anyway I've got to guide the camera. There's the temple seen from this corner. There's still trucks here. They're cleaning up some of the leftovers from the New Year festival. That's the sky tree in the background. And swinging around, you can see part of the spotlights. They've really done a beautiful job on the illumination here. That's the smaller gate just in front of Sensoji. And then the real, what do we call, the real thing to see is up on the front of his, there's the 5-story pagoda. And they've done such a beautiful job with the illuminations. I don't know if this camera's going to catch it. But it looks just so good. Let's move over out front of the main temple. You know, I really honestly don't have much interest in the religious aspects of a place like this, but it's clearly an important part of Japanese culture. And to be living, you know, 60 seconds, come out of my front door and 1 minute later I'm standing here. It's just so cool, I can't actually believe it's actually happening. A last shot of the temple here before we head off in another direction, and of course, again, the beautiful pagoda. The temple is now behind the camera. We're facing the other way, and this is the top end of the famous Nakamise, the street of shops that runs up from the main street towards the temple. We're about a third of the way down the Nakamise, the famous street, but we're going to turn off here because on the right hand side, this is where it joins the famous Dempoindori, and there's a destination along here that I don't want to miss. The shopkeepers along this part of Dempoindori have done a really nice job making their street attractive to passers-by, but it's the next block that I'm more interested in right now. Let's go. Yes, you might recognize where we are. We've come around full circle. This is Dokudori, and just down on the left-hand side there's a certain Mokuhankan print shop. I'm now going to drop off the camera, head out for dinner, and pack it up for the night. Thank you very much for watching so far. It shouldn't be long now before I bring you part 2 of this set of videos documenting the production of the Great Wave print. See you next time. Thank you and good night.